Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Welcome once again to another episode of Sister Talk. Tonight I am hosting a couple that has quite a story, quite a journey that they have walked with, and the Lord has helped them to, navigate some of the issues that they are going through. But before that, my name is Linda Talam, and I am glad that you're tuned in from wherever you are tonight. I'd like to request you to share the feed of the show on YouTube and also on Facebook. Invite your friends. Let's, encourage one another so that we are able to talk about these things freely, and also to be able to motivate one another, to encourage one another. To any mother or any father who has been through, difficult issues, this is the moment for you guys to, just come in and, tell us your story. And I'd like to hear you, or, see your messages engaging us on this show tonight, so that we are able to, help one another. My name is Linda Talam, and once again, welcome to Sister Talk. So before we go much further, I'd like to introduce my guests. They are a couple, but first, of course, ladies first. So on my far left is Muthoni Chege.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
To the show.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. You're looking lovely.
Thank you, and you too.
And
as
then,
always.
yes, as usual,
Yes.
the bar has to be out there. Of course, we are going to say thank you to Elias Chege, who is also our...
Thank you for having me.
They usually say when we are told we are smart, they're the ones who take the glory.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, your parents can't cry because clearly he's taking care of you.
Yeah, sure.
So, karibu sana to the show, you guys. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what you do, a bit about yourself, Muthoni.
Okay, my name is Muthoni, just as you've said. Margaret Muthoni is my name, and I am born again.
Yeah.
I am a businesswoman. I sell toys on wholesale. That's what I love to do.
Okay.
In as much as I studied economics and finance in KU, I decided that business is it for me.
Entrepreneur, you decided to go the entrepreneurship
Yes.
way.
And that had always been my prayer. So I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how about you, Elias?
Thanks once again for having me. My name is Elias Chege. I love the Lord. I'm born again. I'm a trained accountant and economist, and currently working with our railway corporation in the quality management and risk management. Yes.
Okay, so do you do the business with your person or not really?
Actually, let me not go ahead of myself, but I actually began the business.
Okay.
And then when the opportunity came, I left it to her to run.
Okay.
And then an opportunity came for me to go back to the office, and it's a whole testimony.
Wow.
Yes.
So let me ask Muthoni, how did you guys meet?
Wow, you're looking for a really long version.
I know, yeah.
But all the same, we met in campus in first year in a group discussion for entrepreneurship. I'm sure you
Group discussion?
Yes. We were supposed to be doing an assignment, and I was in a group of men, like 3 of them, and he was one of them. And from there on, it was another story. Like, we just became good friends. I didn't think initially, I never thought to myself that he admired me.
Okay.
Of course, because to me, huyu alikuwa jamaa wa tao, and to me, I had just come from Shag, so there was no way.
You are more of a Geshagi girl,
Yeah, I was by the way, and I think it was the innocence that he saw.
The innocent girl.
Yeah.
How about you? What did you think when you first saw her?
Wow. Interesting. I think the first thing that really attracted me to her was her boldness.
Okay.
Here I am. I'm an introvert. So my my words in the group discussion, they are well thought. Okay? So I have to think before I say. Here she is. She's just throwing the points as they come. This is a discussion. Whether you take this one, you leave out that one, whichever you find useful.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that's a level of boldness I haven't seen. And that sparkled a friendship that spanned actually 2 years. Actually, we met when we were almost doing our exams. I think it was in October thereabout.
Okay.
Then it so happened November was my birthday, and I carried a cake. So I shared a cake. And of all my friends, she is the only one who texted back to say thank you for the cake. So I was like, wow. I think that was my key of saying, I think I can pursue that one.
And
the line is open.
And interesting enough, Pastor Linda, the message that was sent back quite surprised me because I still remember it to date. It was like, this is a perfect definition of a true friendship.
Wow.
I'm thinking, I just met you. When did it become perfect? You know? It was quite interesting for me, by the way.
He had already thought 10 years ahead.
I guess so.
But I just loved how genuine she was. And I think as our friendship evolved, I was just she's brilliant. She's an A student.
Immaterial.
Yes. And then as you continued, I realized she has a very tangible walk with God. Yes, and our friendship just grew, and we would meet for prayers, and it was very progressive. Yes.
So you guys dated for
quite long.
Quite long.
10 years, 9 years.
Actually, this is what happened. 2 years. We began our friendship in 2010. Then our friendship spanned 2 years. The idea I had, and I know my parents will be watching. This focused man who needs to be done away with his college education. I was pursuing my degree, and I was also pursuing my CPAs. So I was a very busy man. But somehow in our second year of friendship, I told her, I think we can take our friendship to the next level. But I made it real to her. I told her, if we decide to go this route, it's going to take us 5 years. From now to when you're going to get married.
I love the way introverts just, plan.
So I told her, now tentatively, we are going to get married in 2016 or 2017, and we are in 2012. And so our friendship and courtship spanned 6 years. Yes, and I thank God. It was not an easy walk, but I thank God.
Wow.
Yes.
So for those who are tuning in, there is hope at the end of the tunnel. So did he propose down on one knee, or you just found yourself planning for the wedding?
No, he did propose in church, in his church then. Then he used to be in Anglican. And that is when, like one of those Sundays he invited me. I think he was also the preacher of the day. So I thought I'm coming to see the preacher of the day, and celebrate
to cheer him
with him.
on.
Only for him to actually go in front there and actually, call me in front. And, he went on one knee and it was so amazing. I was so overwhelmed. I really cried in that church. I really did cry in that church.
It was well planned.
And it was the best proposal, to be very honest.
It was really well planned. I had organized with my pastor then. Of course, I told her I'm the preacher of the day, but I was not the one who was actually preaching. So I stood up, called her in front. I told them I have a friend I have kept for so many years, and it's time to take the friendship to the next level. And I can tell you for a fact, I had purchased that ring with all my savings. And here I was. I proposed, and she really cried. And I can say I pursued that by faith, because if I was to look at how much I have, I would have said let's wait for a little longer. But we kept on going. It was June, I remember, of 2016.
Wow.
Yes.
Such a beautiful love. So you got married in 2016, the same year?
November.
Wow. Yes. So if you're tuning in, please, share with us where you're watching us from tonight. You can also engage us, and tell us if you're married or not, if your person proposed or you just found yourself like some of us planning for the wedding. So we appreciate Mercy Marangu Bidan, who is watching us tonight, Robinson Duhiu, who is watching us tonight, Wilberforce Wanyonyi says watching. So welcome, and share your feed. Now, fast forward, Muthoni, you've gotten married. you know,
Yeah.
you're in the house now. You are the wife.
Yeah, I am the newlywed. Yes.
Newlywed. How was that experience
I
for you?
loved it.
Yeah.
I think we had really looked forward, having dated for 6 years, so we had really looked forward to this.
Yeah.
And having been like, we were Christians, we had been praying for this, we had been waiting for this, it was so exciting. We finally felt, oh, God has actually done it for us.
Yeah.
And to be honest, even the process of the wedding and the provisions, that, like the way it happened, we really saw the hand of God. And so I was so excited to be married to him. I felt this was in the plan of God. Everything is in perfect place. We had these, dreams together.
Yeah.
I think some of the interesting dreams we had is how we would buy a castle, how we would do we had really planned. Yeah, so I was very excited to be married. But of course, once you get married and like the guys have gone and now you're in the house alone, is when you realize a few things here and there are not going as you had hoped they would go. I think the first thing that shocked me, Pastor Linda, was the fact that my husband would always, and I know this is always said, I believe by every couple, but it still surprised me so much that when my husband came home, socks zake alikuwa anaeka hata kwa couch. What do you mean? What on earth is this? And
so you remove the socks and put it in.
And I would actually talk about it, and I would still find others. And once most of the times when I talked about it, he would just get them from wherever he had tucked them, and then since our bedroom used to be straight ahead, he would just it's a basketball, and then he would draw it, and I was like, what is wrong with you? And I'm telling you, Linda, those small matters had actually begun to get into my heart. Until one day when I'm praying, I had a lot of time to pray because I wasn't working at this point. And when I was praying, God told me, let me tell you, marriage will have a lot of socks issues. You better learn how to overlook socks issues. Because there'll be so many, and if you decide to carry each one of them, you'll be such a burdened woman. And so from that time, I think I even shared with him, the Lord has told me to leave all the socks matters, like to ignore all of them.
So we appreciate Joe Mwangangi says tuned in, Enoch says tuned in from Eldoret, and Dennis also says tuned in. We appreciate your, coming in, and now you are married.
Yes.
Was the blissful, expectations you had before getting married to Muthoni met, or you had to also work on some of the things? Are you still putting socks here, by the way?
No. It's no longer happening. I think one of the things I had to adjust to is the fact that she's very structured. So you have to do things this way. If it's cooking, unikukatakata hii weka kando, katakata hii weka kando. It's so procedural. I was like, where? Okay. Personally, I left my parents' house on the day of the wedding. So Nile, I had my own room and everything. So whether I wash the clothes, I decide to fold them 1 week later, it's upon me. For her, she can't sleep until the house is in order. I was like, wow. I have a long way to go. But we have come a long way. We've come a long way. Have really adjusted to the structure. Even our son knows. Once we enter the house, he can't enter the house without his shoes. So he removes the shoes and carry them to where they're supposed to be. It's automatic, like programmed. And we have adjusted accordingly.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Now we are going to shortly get into your story now, but let me appreciate Joan Bugwa says watching next door neighbors.
They
are your neighbors. Thank you so much, Joan. Please go and knock on every neighbor's house and tell them our neighbor is on TV. And then Mwatembo Ondieki says also they are tuned in. Starly Gadhiaka watching from Kiambu, and Margaret Wamboi says watching from Kijabe. Thank you so much. Now you are married.
I am married.
Of course, now I don't know how long it took for you to get pregnant.
I got pregnant in 2018, early 2018. So that was like
about 2 years later.
About 2 years later. We had actually prayed to God that He'll give us like just, an year. Although sometimes you don't know what kind of prayer you're making, to be very honest. So, and I think 1 year later, when we were actually having a fast, immediately after, I actually discover
You're
expecting.
Yeah.
And it was in a very interesting way, Pastor Linda, because I felt unwell. And I self-diagnosed myself that I had some amoebas. And I went to the chemist and I bought the medication and I took it. Only for me, like a few days after, I'm still feeling unwell.
Yeah.
So we decided, by the way, you're not supposed to take amoeba medication when you're pregnant.
When you're expectant.
Yeah, so I actually see it as a testimony. So so we decided, let's test. And we did 4 tests and they were all negative.
Yeah.
So then later, I think the same day, I guess, we are walking around some place and there's a butchery and I'm a lover of meat. And then I'm like, I don't feel like eating meat anymore in my life. My husband says, no. This is not yourself. So we decide, let's walk into a hospital and have a blood test. And of course, it turns out positive. Now, what was so interesting for me, I was so happy. I jumped, hugged my husband, and he's so like numb. I'm wondering what is happening. I thought we all wanted to have a baby, And interesting enough, he was so sad. I guess he didn't even talk to me after that. I asked him, Tuti, are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. And so we left the hospital. I'm sure even the doctor must have wondered if the guy was sick. So was he okay? So of course later we went home and he would tell me why he felt this way, because we were going through a really tough season. We were he was not working at this point, I think, actually. And it had been some time ever since he had a job. Because when we got married, he actually lost his job twice. And during this time, I also don't have a job. And the last time he lost his job, I also lost a small business that I had actually begun doing. So it was really tough for us. So for him as a man, I think he began to process, what am I supposed to feed this baby? Do we have any, we are not even able to pay rent at this point. We could not even raise food, like little money kama hiyo to purchase food was an issue. So I think it really hit him hard at that point. But to be honest, I was so happy. I was calling my pastors and telling them the Lord has done it.
Has answered the prayer.
I did. I was so excited.
So why were you not excited after the praying for a child?
Wow. Like she said, we had made a very interesting prayer that the Lord will bless us with a child after you have enjoyed our first year of marriage. What we didn't know is that 6 months after our wedding, I lost my job. She is not working, I'm not working. Well, I remember after that we prayed and fasted. 1 week later, I got another job. 6 months later, I lost the job. So now we have gone into 2018. She began having symptoms. And now, of course, we went for testing. And here I am thinking, oh Lord, how am I supposed to take care of this baby? Because on the bare minimum, like I said, my parents will be watching. I have been raised knowing what a father does. The role model of a father. He provides, puts food on the table, he protects. My dad has been there for us. And so the role of a dad had been set this far.
High,
So here I am, not providing the bare minimum. So processing the fact that there's another human being coming was extremely difficult. We are logical being men, so it was me asking God seriously, diaper, food, it was.
And now it has to be breakfast, lunch, supper. And in between.
Yes, so it was hard to process that.
So how was was the journey or the pregnancy smooth?
It was.
It was smooth.
I had a smooth pregnancy.
Now the day of delivery comes.
Well, we went into hospital a few times before the delivery day because I had really many forced labors. I guess maybe 3 or 4. And we kept going in and we will be told, okay, you go wait a few other days. Actually, at one point I thought, I may be 43 weeks at this point because I've really gone back so many times. And sometimes you have these scans, they are showing this is your due date. Then you also have calculated this is your due date. So you are totally confused. So we went in on 3rd of November. And I had first labors just as had been before. And unfortunately, once I got to the hospital, there was no labor. Because I remember going in and they were like, oh, the contractions are a bit strong. And then a few hours later, there was nothing. So I was definitely admitted because they're like, now you can't keep this baby anymore. After the admission, of course, they advised us to have induction. Because they were like, if your labor is not coming, you don't have any complications, that's the easiest way out. And we were induced, I think, on 4th at around 3. Unfortunately, I can't forget these times. They are so important to me. Because after the induction, I think my life became a different, like, that is the moment my life changed. And let me tell you, Linda, the labor was crazy. Like, honestly, I keep saying, I think I personally died and then I resurrected. My husband would wrap me the whole night. And, you know, nobody actually prepares you for this kind of a thing. I just thought I'll go to hospital, deliver my baby. And back. I even remember the day I went to hospital, what I had put on. You know, the way you remember every detail of that day. Because I thought I'll go. And then, you see, I'm so organized, so I had even left my house in a certain order, and I had hoped immediately I'd get my baby, I'd go back. And so the labor extended, and it would actually extend for 16 hours. Very bad labor, and nothing. Like, in as much as I was dilating, my baby was not engaging. And I kept, in fact, at one point, I think at around 2 a.m., of course, I had really gone through a lot of trouble. So me, at this point, I said, let me tell you, Mimi Munipeleke CS. I did not exactly come for that, and I did not even believe God for that. But at this point, since my baby is not engaged, please take me for a CS. Of course, I tell my husband, no. I think you see, your wife has been seeing you here all through, and now she's beginning kukua na tumaringo. So right now, just walk out so that we can deal with her. Of course, the nurses would advise, and he would step out. But labor, like, in as much as I had the labor, I did not, like, open up further. And it really took a long time until finally they say, now you're close to it, and I'm taken to the delivery room. And my baby is not coming out. At this point, Pastor Linda, I was so tired. I was so tired. I had screamed the whole night. And I know they kept telling me, no, preserve the energy. I don't know how it's supposed to be preserved, to be very honest. Because the pain was beyond what I could bear. Because I always said I'll be very quiet in the labor ward and all that. But at this point, I was like, let me hear anyone calling my name. And so there are I felt like I was actually dying, to be very honest. I think at this point I had oxygen. It was really bad. And I'm pushing and my baby is not coming out. I'm really pushing hard. I remember one of our friends actually from church was in the room and actually brought me a cup of tea. They were trying to give me something to see if I have some more energy to try push the baby out, because they were saying, I think we can see the head and all that. And unfortunately, the baby would not come out until they called a few consultants, and they were like, this baby would never come out. Actually, this lady's pelvic bone cannot allow her to give birth like this. And at that point, they were like, rush this girl to the theater, because we will lose both the mother and this baby. And I'm telling you, I was in so much pain, Pastor Linda. I was like, before tuongea kitu ingine, nitoleeni hiyo uchungu. I don't know how you're going, you know, I kept saying that maka tukaingia hiyo theater. Nitoleeni hiyo uchungu, because it was really painful. And then, so of course, I went through the CS and it was successful. Everything went well. Of course, my baby did not cry. When he came out, he did not cry.
Because of the long distress.
Because of the long distress. And of course that bothered me, but they said the baby would be fine and all that. Of course, at this point you don't know much, because you can't see the baby. You just know that the baby is now out and they're taking care of you, and they'll go and take care of the baby. Fast forward, I did not know that after now my baby had been, like, I had brought forth my baby, that he was in so much distress that he had actually scored so low. I don't know what they call that score. Thank you.
He scored at 3.
He scored at 3.
Oh, he scored at 3 or 7.
Out of 7. And of course, so he was rushed to HDU. I think they call it that. And my husband did not even get to hold the baby. He can actually, I think he was even telling me what exactly happened, because now at this point I could not tell exactly what happened.
So at this point, where are you when the baby has been delivered?
I remember I was actually waiting outside on the couch, because I had to sign the forms for her to go to theater. She went to theater. At one point while I was waiting on the couch, I saw a nurse rush. That's when one of them told me, "Oh, that's your baby." So I went to peep. You know, I had this plan, Pastor Linda, that I would hold my baby, because all along we had somehow known it's going to be a boy. We had even chosen a name even before he was conceived. So the plan was I'm going to hold my baby and pray over my baby,
of course,
and speak a blessing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I saw my baby, I couldn't even go near. The boy was panting so hard, and he was kind of dark, and then some things were coming from the mouth.
Some foam.
Some
sort of
foam.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, young man, you don't have to come this way.
Yeah.
And wow, it was hard to process all that. I actually remember I held him after some few hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it was quite something.
Okay. Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah.
I hope you are sharing and listening to this testimony. Joy Chemeli says tuned in from Kiambu. Regina Philip tuned in and ready to learn. Loreen Ochieng also says tuned in. We appreciate all those who are tuning in. And now at this point the baby is born. He has scored very low. For those maybe who have not given birth, when a baby is born, there's usually a score of breathing, skin color, a lot of stories there.
Yes.
So the baby was now rushed to HDU. Yes. I'm sure by then, what was happening to you before we go on a break?
Well, at this point, I think, most times I think you wake up like after 6 hours.
Because
I hadn't realized
sedated?
what my son had actually, exactly. Yeah. So I hadn't realized what had exactly happened to Nathan. And I think later is when my husband would come and tell me and explain to me that the baby is in a lot of distress and all that. I don't think he was processing anything at this point. Yeah. And I just thought everything would be fine anyway.
So we are going to take a short break at this point. And of course, we appreciate all those who are tuning in and engage with us. And as we go on a break, I'd like to request you to share and also invite as many people to listen to this story. Don't go anywhere. See you in a few.
In Pillars of Faith.
These truths that we bring out every week around the Word of God, they are meant to strengthen our faith.
Time is a consequence of light. The light you have will inform the time you'll be in.
We seek to fulfill the mandate of the Great Commission.
The purpose of God for believers is for formation of sons.
What are the pillars that we need in our lives?
Bearing fruit is spiritual maturity. You cannot bear fruit if you're not mature.
That is our agenda, motivation and intention.
Introduce Jesus into the matter, and your times and seasons will shift.
Pillars of Faith, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Explore a world of knowledge at Elevation Bookshop. Dive into topics like marriage, money, and spiritual growth with our vast reading materials. But that's not all. We are thrilled to introduce new additions like stationeries, notebooks, modeling clay, dictionaries, pencils, kamusi, and more. And calling all students, gear up for success with our back-to-school items, providing you with everything you need to excel in every subject. At Elevation Bookshop, we're here to assist you in finding the perfect resources for your journey. Do you have specific preferences or looking for something special? Visit us at Kenya Cinema Plaza, mezzanine floor, or contact us on 0748 902 225. Elevation Bookshop. Enrich your life.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned and sharing the feed. We appreciate Mutie. David says watching from Kangundo. Puri Favored from Thika. Pascaline Kanini says great couple. Regina Wanjiko says tuned in. Muthoni Muigai says tuned in. Thank you so much for engaging us. Please you can also feel free to share your testimony so that we are able also to appreciate the doing of the Lord in your life. And then Wambui Wanganga I hope I'm pronouncing your name well, says watching from Thika. And all those who are also watching in on YouTube, Diana Njoki says please pass my greetings to the couple. I think this is your fan. Your fan. Your friend. So we appreciate all of you for staying tuned. So at this point now, the baby is out, the mother is of course waking up, and you are the one who is the caregiver. So now what happens after this?
What happened was our son, after some time he was okay.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the temperature spiked, and I think this was one of the saddest time because they had to do they had to take some fluid from the spinal cord.
Oh.
Yes, and that's when they discovered he has some mild meningitis. And after doing after doing culture.
Yeah.
And now in this time, after 1 week, she began having persistent pain. Persistent pain, and it's not going away. And one of the things she discovered is the cohorts, when you were the end now, CS, they were already up and running. But for her, she is still in a lot of pain.
A lot of pain, yes.
Yes. And so the doctors advised that she goes for a scan.
Okay.
And that's when they discovered that she has a lot of free fluid.
Free fluid?
Yes, fluid. So basically, the car jam near the wound area.
Yeah.
So the decision was made to take her back to theater. And it was an emergency. Actually, thank God that the doctors came in on time. She was operated on a weekend. And actually, when they went in, the report I got was she could not have made it through the weekend.
Oh.
She would have died of shock. And because they say they removed like a liter of pus. Yes, from the area around the wound. And that was really shocking.
Yeah.
And fast forward, even after that, the wound didn't heal. So, and further nursing, they discovered now they also have to go back to the theater to clean up the wound once again.
So now this is a third surgery?
Yes, because there's a CS. The first one was to remove the pus, and then now there's a
to clean
up. Yeah, so we found ourselves in the hospital for a month and a half. I think we left in December. I can't remember the date.
Yeah.
It was more than a month. So at this time, our son is also isolated because I said anaweza ambukiza watoto wengine. So I remember it was before COVID, but at that time we had learned how to put on the PPEs because you have to go in to see
well covered, so that
well covered tusiambukize pia wengine. And it was such an experience. Actually, we were showing him the photos, I think 2 weeks ago, coincidentally. And the boy just cried. It's like he could relate with the story. It was like, wow, this is
now 5 years.
Yeah, it's like he could relate with the story, and it was quite something. It was quite something to see them in that state. Yeah.
So then how long after the 3 surgeries did you stay in hospital?
I think that 1.5 months, but this did not mean that I was doing perfectly okay.
Okay.
From the surgeries, I had developed a bad stomachache that hardly went away, to be honest. My legs were really swollen. And I think emotionally I had begun to sink. And I think I realized that one day, or maybe someone should have picked it at this point, because what happened to me, there's a time my son was supposed to come to my bedside. Makio, I think my husband forgot to say I was also isolated. So one of the reasons I had also to put this stuff was because I would also infect my baby or people around the hospital. So one of those days they say, oh, your boy is improving and all that. This was after almost like a month of him being in nursery and us having to keep going, and I'd have to be assisted all through this journey to go like see him and all that. So at this point they say he's going to be brought to my room because he's done so well and I'm also improving a bit. Then when they brought him that day, they then come like maybe after an hour to take his temperatures, and they realize that the fevers have actually come back. And you know, at this point they're saying he has traces of meningitis. So we had been praying that he gets healed, because you know, you can imagine a little boy, and I had seen him go through so much. Pastor Linda, we were there when the boy was like being folded, and you know, the whatever
fluid,
the fluid was gotten out of him, and it was just crazy. So for me to imagine as a mother, a new mother, I had to watch my son go through this, and at this point he is not okay. Honestly, it's like I lost my mind, and for some time I actually began to hallucinate. And I didn't know it had an effect, actually. I didn't know it had, like, I just thought that this was just an episode and that I'll be fine after this. But apparently after this, he eventually improved with a lot of prayers. I really thank God for the men of God, for our pastor, Pastor Sunta, and Apostle David Juma, and Pastor Karen, Pastor Gigi, all the pastors that came through for us during this time, and even the members of our church who really prayed for us. I honestly believe that nothing else carried me through this season other than these prayers that were being offered. And let me tell you, actually, as we're getting to the end and the doctors were like, we need to discharge. Actually, one of the surgeons said they need to discharge me because they feel like keeping me in hospital is actually not a really good thing. It's really working against me.
So that was how many months later?
That's the one, like maybe at the end of 1.5, 1.5 months. But they discharge us, not because I'm doing so well. He's actually given a few staff and told, this is how you will be nursing this wound, because this wound was not healing. And I'm telling you, my wound at one point had actually been left open. I really did go through a lot of pain cleaning that wound. So at this point, I'm discharged, and my husband is the one to clean the wound. Of course, with the hope that it gets better. And we are actually discharged. But I think honestly, I would say that maybe I had hit rock bottom, and I didn't know emotionally, because the next time, because we went in and we were supposed to keep going for clinics after every 3 days. And once we went for the next clinic, the doctor was like, why is your blood pressure high? And she was like, if it continues like this, we will put you on medication. To be very honest, that really put me like down. I was like, honestly, I can't be barely 30, and I am having issues with my blood pressure, and I am so sick. Actually, at this point, hata naenda husika, nimeinama, nikushikiliwa, sishiki mtoto. Most of the times, they will just have me sit, wanilete mtoto, nimnyonyeshe, and all that. And I'm being treated, I'm really sick, actually. So I'm thinking, I'm this sick, like my stomach is so like had a big scar, and now they're talking about blood pressure. It really put me down. And I didn't even know, and nobody knew it. We just thought we were managing. And anyway, us coming out of hospital was itself a big testimony. And we really were rejoicing that I'm even out of hospital in the first place. Because actually at the point I left hospital, there was a contention, because the doctors one of the surgeons came in and said, no, you can't discharge this lady. And another one would be like, no, let's release her. Let's release her, because the way she is, I think mentally she's beginning to get affected. Maybe he had seen it and had not even known what that exactly meant. So we are out of hospital now, and we are going in for the clinics, and emotionally, I think I'm beginning to feel like, God, this is too much for me. To be honest, I felt like I couldn't marry the great faith that I had and what was happening to me. Pastor Linda, I have grown in church. I have loved the Lord all my life. You know, those people who say they don't even know what the other life would have looked like, you know, without them being in church. So at this point, I thought I had prayed, I had talked to God about this, and this is everything that is happening to me. I think it began to sink in me that I couldn't take certain foods. I couldn't sit in a certain position. I would have now my blood pressure spiking up, and I actually developed a phobia for hospitals. not knowing actually. Because what happened...
So all along, when you're going through this, your son
Yeah.
is still at the hospital. Yeah?
Yeah,
Is he still at the hospital? So how long did he take for him to come out? For now, all of them.
We were all discharged on the same day.
On the same day with your son?
Him, I think he spent in the HDU like a month.
And then
Yeah,
the
a
other
month.
half now they were
That
together.
he was in my room.
Yes,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
was just nursing them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that's like 3 months. Counting?
Okay, what happened is after I left hospital and we are home and he's nursing me, I was still very sick. And so eventually I get admitted in a different hospital after actually having 1,001 hospital trips to this hospital, that hospital. Now there had even begun to be suggestions, see this doctor, see this other doctor, and others. Very kind doctors, like one that is our friend, had even offered to come and see me from home. A lot was happening, Pastor Linda. A lot was happening, but I thank God because at this point, Nathan now had recovered.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he had actually picked up very well. So him, at least everybody that was assisting or the community around me was already taking good care of him.
Okay.
And of course myself as well, but I wasn't doing so well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's get to the point, Elias, where now all of them are now out of hospital.
Yeah.
What was going through your heart in terms of spiritually and emotionally? What are the things that you went through at this point?
Let me begin at the point where they were in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because it was very hard for me. I think big up to Mashia because he offered me a place. The distance was very long.
Yeah.
So I had to spend the night in the house. Because me coming all the way to town and going back could have been very hectic.
Yeah.
So what I remember doing one of those days, the hospital has a chapel.
Yeah.
I remember going before God and telling God, I have never made such a vivid prayer. I told God, kindly don't take away my son, don't take away my wife. As in I poured my heart out to God and told him, kindly preserve them.
Yeah.
I need them. And while this is happening, and of course the day of discharging comes in, their bill was up there. My son's bill was almost 100,000. Her bill was coming to 500,000. I'm not working.
Yeah.
She's not working. And all I can say is we saw God. Yeah. At this point, I think she can tell you my hair is so unkempt. My emotions are all over. And I must say, number one, just like she said, we thank God for our pastors. They really, really prayed for us. And came to see us in hospital. At some point, she was in so much pain, she picked the phone and called Apostle David.
I was so amazed.
Yeah, and Apostle David picked and they prayed.
At 9 o'clock in the night.
Yeah, in the night. And he prayed over her.
Yeah.
And actually the pain actually subsided. It was very relieving. And it was quite a roller coaster of emotions. But I thank God for the prayers and the support system we had in terms of our friends, a small clique of friends, our family, and of course I cannot forget our best couple. They really, really sacrificed a lot because after hospital, they're actually the one who came and picked us from hospital, and we spent the next 1 month in their house. They nursed us, they gave everything we needed. They would take her for clinic and come back, and actually it was just that now they had to release us, but they were like, you guys can stay here as long as you want.
So we thank God for such angels that God
Angels.
sends our way
Yes.
so that they can help us when such needs arise. We appreciate you for staying tuned and of course telling us that you're tuned in. Carol Mulinge, we appreciate you. Samuel, who says tuned in from Naivasha, we appreciate that you are engaging us tonight so that we can hear this testimony. So you stopped going to clinics after how long? Muthoni?
Have to be after 3 or 4 months.
After
I think 3 months. Because I remember that was after I was discharged. And I had, even after I was discharged, I had to go to hospital after every 72 hours. I don't know if you remember that part. And eventually, of course, they died out. But it didn't mean that I was okay. Honestly, I experienced a lot of trouble with my stomach, even at this point. And I would think at this point I had begun to have a form of anxiety, but we did not know it. And so when eventually we went to our own house, I would occasionally have chest heaviness. I'd occasionally have like my stomach. I would be in and out of hospital. Palpitations. Now my heart actually began having palpitations quite often. We would go to hospital and the doctor would say your blood pressure is high. And this was really weighing me down because I was wondering, God, I know that this child is a blessing. I honestly can't marry what I am going through and the blessing itself. And you see, the Bible says that the blessing does not come with sorrow. So I felt like I was in a place of sorrow. To be honest, I felt like I was in a place of battle, in a place of... I was feeling like I was so pressed. I was really so pressed by so much. And let me tell you, Pastor Linda, this season would stick so long with us that I would say that at this point is where I would say, and we would say that we have seen the healing after 4 or so years of being in hospital. And every time I entered a hospital, the doctor would say your blood pressure is high. Until one point we went to a physician and the physician said, this is not a blood pressure issue. This is an anxiety issue. So I'm diagnosing you with an anxiety disorder, and I want you to go through counseling and go through the process of healing for your emotions. Of course, I'd later learn that when you go through a lot of stress, your stress reservoirs run out. And that is what had happened to me, and nobody had gotten to realize. So what had happened is the moment I'd feel like a small headache, a small stomachache, I would immediately go into anxiety, and the anxiety will take a now toll on me. Like my stomach, I would either have a running stomach, I'd have a lot of nausea, I'd have so much was going on in me. I'd have headaches, I'd have a heavy chest, I'd have palpitations. And actually the doctor was like, I'll not treat these symptoms. I want you to go through counseling. And of course at this point, we didn't even begin the journey. I think we were weighing even the cost and thinking for me to go for every of these. And at this point, I think we had a small business, but it could not afford to take us through this kind of a thing. So and let me tell you, Pastor Linda, at one point for a whole year, in the year I think 2019, now when my son is so young, I had boils for a whole year. I had all kinds of interesting diseases, honestly. I had boils and they would be treated, and I'd go back to the doctor, take the medication, get healed for like 2 weeks, go back with the same boils for a whole year. And that is not to mean that I did not have nausea, I did not have palpitations, my blood pressure did not become an issue. In fact, at one point, I remember going to hospital and he said, at this point, you have to be under medication.
Okay. So now, having gone through that journey, Elias, how did the healing or the breakthrough, the seeing of light begin to come for you too?
I would say actually it is at this point, I think 4 or 5 years later, that you're beginning to see the healing take place. Because like she said, what would happen anytime she got sick, she is affected emotionally. And she would be like, you know what, I think I'm dying. I'm actually going. I'm going to leave you guys.
Many times.
And she has said that many times. And then at this point, we also can't even have a very meaningful discussion because her emotions are all over. And it was quite a journey. And I must say, we had to pray a lot. I personally have had to pray for my wife. And I think one of the foundations we created when we were dating was holding hands and going on our knees and praying together. And I've had to tell her, you know what, let's kneel, let's pray. And of course, it has been a journey going through counseling. So it's prayer, counseling, and having a very good support system. At one point in this process, by the way, because people forget very fast. So 3 years and someone began asking, hey, when is the other one coming?
When are you having another baby?
She would it would happen anywhere. Maybe you have come to church and then tunaenda home ananikalisha chini. Now it's like I'm the victim. You'll be like, let me tell you, if so and so asks me about another baby, I'm going to give them a piece of mind. So that's the place she was emotionally. And I can only say it has been God. Right now she is able to, even if you told her now is the other baby coming, she is in that place. I can confidently say healing has occurred and it has happened. And I'm so grateful to God.
Wow.
Yes.
So there was the engagement, of course, of the therapy or counseling,
Yes.
and the spiritual aspect of it all.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're watching us tonight and you feel like you're going through a lot and there's no light, like there's darkness, because sort of your night stayed for about 4 years. 4 years, and then the 5th year is now when you can say you've seen the light.
Yes.
So for those who are going through a tough time tonight, this testimony is just to encourage you that sometimes you can be pressed hard, but just know this pressing only produces, or gives out. The grapes are usually pressed for wine to come out. The olive, whatever's, they're usually pressed for the oil to come out. Maybe you are going to hear what has come out of this testimony. But if you're watching us tonight, something has to come out of your testimony. So hold on through the pressing, through the crashing, through the everything. Nothing will take your light out. Furthermore, it's just to allow God to let His glory. So why do you feel, or have you understood why God took you through this process for 4 years?
Well, just as you're saying it, Pastor Linda, it's for the making. And really, I have come to learn that for me to become more like my Savior, I have to go through this kind of making. And let me tell you, at one point, God told me, I feel like we are now in a battle with you. Because what had actually happened and what God would later reveal to me is that after He took me out of hospital, I sat. And you remember that time the doctor came in and said you had 24 hours to live? I stayed in that 24 hours of living. And every time, at that particular point, actually I was in a matatu going home, and God said, Maggie, I want you to leave the graveside. I want you to stop living next to the grave. Because what was happening, Pastor Linda, anytime I felt a little bit sick, I would be like, this is it. This is the end we were waiting for. I'll be admitted, I'll die, I'll leave my son. I mean, maybe God had it this way for me. And in fact, I had battles with death. I'd be like, I think I need to make peace with death and accept that this is the destiny of everybody. Imagine at this age. And let me tell you, the interesting part of life is that when you're walking out here, nobody really knows what you're going through. And at this point, God told me, I want you to leave the graveside and begin to live, Maggie. You cannot continue dying every day. You know, the physical death. Like, you cannot every day keep waiting for a day that you are unsure of. It is for sure that we will die one day. But right now, and right this moment, today, God has given you today. And the word of God talks about us living today. Tomorrow is in the hands of God. But as long as today, you have the day that is called today. I want you to live fully. I want you to be expectant of me. I want you to be hopeful. I want you to be preaching and encouraging others and telling them that the Lord is with them. That you have been pressed yourself. You're still going through the pressing, but you're living hopefully. Because what you have is not a hopeless, the hope we have as Christians is not a hopeless end. It has a meaning. There is a joy that awaits us even on the other side. And I'm telling you, I had to change. God had to begin to work on my mind again, to heal my mind. Because I always say that what happened to me is that I healed physically and never healed emotionally. I actually literally became sick now mentally. And I struggled with it for so long. And eventually God would even remind me scriptures. I had to actually come up with scriptures that became like staple food to me. Like the book of the 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 18 that talks about being grateful in all circumstances. Tell you what, Pastor Linda, because I still go through some of the turmoil. Like, I'll have my stomach having a lot of noses and all that. And let me tell you, I'm usually like, in this situation, God, I am giving thanks. I choose to give thanks because of the instruction of your word. Telling me to give thanks here and now. I remember when you called me to this show, I told you I was actually meditating on that scripture of we are hard pressed
but not crushed.
Because honestly, I have been hard pressed. I have seen times where I would feel like I can't do this anymore. But God, at one point, I remember one day God telling me, I was standing at my balcony and almost giving up, and the Lord was like, the righteous are as bold as a lion. You cannot and you will never give up.
Wow. We can clearly see a preacher
Amen.
A preacher is here. Elias is, you are the one preaching, but I see this one is rising.
It's a rising preacher. Yes.
What oil has come out of this pressing that you faced through? Maybe in 1 minute, because we are about to go now to end the show. Yeah.
I would say number one for her. Something really incredible has come out of her.
Yeah.
Many have come on her line, and she has offered encouragement. That is one of them. And for me, I would say it was a moment of disruption. I was entering marriage with a plan.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly disrupted. Like I said, I have grown up with a model of this is how a father needs to do and needs to have his way around, and I was disrupted completely. And the Lord has birthed out something great. The ministry, interestingly, as our son was, before even our son was born, the Lord birthed a business completely ordained by God. And it became something big, and I left it to her to manage, and here we are.
Wow.
Yes.
So out of the pressing, something will come out. Something will come out. So maybe in 30 seconds, Maggie, you can just look at the camera and encourage someone who is going through a hard time.
Well, I think some of the scriptures that have been so key to me is also Hebrews chapter 4, that talks about the kind of high priest that we have. One that is able to identify with all our issues and all our troubles. And to be honest, I had to come to that point of talking to God as my friend and realizing that he does identify with me even when no one else can, and that he's able to help me out of the situation. So I encourage you to talk to God as a friend will talk to another. He sticks so close to us. He perfectly loves us. He carries us through. So he will also carry you just as he has carried me. Because honestly, I sit here or I stand here as a testimony that the Lord carries through even the toughest of times. Yeah.
That's amazing. Let's see. Sonny Maish says they came through for me in my lowest moment. This is a testimony.
Amen.
They came through for me in my lowest moment. May favor from God be upon them. Amen. Thank you, Sonny, for that testimony. Amen. Regina Wanjiku says, wow, what a testimony. You truly are a power couple. Margaret Wamboy says, I can attest it has been God from the beginning. I am glad you have been healed, Margaret. Amen. Thank you so much. Maggie Melody says, what a testimony. I am encouraged. And Pascaline Kanini says, what a testimony. To God be all the glory. Yes, indeed. The Bible says that nothing can be measured to the glory that we receive after our testing. So regardless of what you're going through tonight, we encourage you that the Lord is with you. Thank you so much for staying tuned to Sister Talk and engaging with us. We appreciate your feedback. May God bless you and have a good night.